I think The Last Duel is great, and it's a big shame that older uh people are not going to see this movie in the theaters because it had a very poor box office performance, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I was gonna say we might think it's great, but we are like two of like 100 people who seem to go this weekend because
Yeah,
only made what 4.8 million
correct.
domestically.
On a big budget. Obviously, this is a Fox inheritance from from for Disney, and this movie had a lot of hype behind it, a lot of pedigree, which goes without saying. Ben Affleck, Matt Damon reuniting once again to write a film, bringing Nicole Center in on top of that, another world class, uh, creator at this point who's just coming off a screenplay Oscar nomination at that for
Mhm.
Can't You Ever Forgive Me. Having Adam Driver join the cast, having Affleck take a different part in as a result, Ridley Scott continuing to work, and all the ingredients that you expect from like big adult dramas, and star vehicles and all that. And I think one of the lessons people have been talking about for the past few months is that older audiences are the most reluctant to return to the box office. You saw that with Bond doing well, but not as well as say Venom, which is being driven by younger, audiences. In the case of Last Duel, the audience is extremely uh, dependent on older people, and they're just not going at this time. And maybe it's a marketing problem as well. Who's to say? But unfortunately, the movie did not latch on, which I think is a shame because I think the movie's really good.
Yeah, it's definitely my top 10 movies for this year. I don't know if that's saying a lot or not. A lot of the most anticipated ones are
Right.
still to come, but I don't think it's been a bad year for movies by any stretch. And so for it to be top 10, I think is really good. Um, I really appreciate a lot about this film. I think there were some things that I wish were a little bit different. I feel like this also could have been like 20 minutes shorter than it was. But that's that you can say that for a lot of movies, and it's also Ridley Scott, so let him vamp, let him do what he's got to do.
Yeah.
Movie looks great. Let's start with that. Like it looks very much of that period. I think
1300s France.
yeah, I think 1400s even, but
Yeah, like
um,
I think it starts in 1386, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
something around that period.
pre Crusades, medieval
Yeah,
Europe.
and I think the storytelling mechanism of the chapters, right? The first chapter where it's from, it's not Jacques, it's Jean Carew, um, who's played by Damon, and then the second chapter is from the perspective of Jacques Lagree,
Jacques
who's played
Labrie.
by Adam Driver, and then the last one is from Jodie Comer's Marguerite, um, and also just kind of like the stylistic choices that come along with that are really interesting, and it's an interesting way to tell a story. You do relive a lot of moments and that feel like they could be, yada yada a bit, but that's okay. Um, and then, man, great climax. This movie, I feel like there's a lot of like intensity built into all these scenes. I think it just has left me with a lot of thoughts as to like why certain characters were the ones who got put in certain positions,
Hmm.
or like why Jean went first in the storytelling as opposed to someone else.
Oh, I know. I think that was clearly the correct choice, though.
I think so too, but it's
Yeah.
funny because like even like Comer Marguerite in the first telling is so like more like stripped down and like intentionally I think like stand out, and then as
Mhm.
it goes through she just becomes like a shining light throughout the film,
Yeah.
and I think it's really well done, and Comer I think is obviously the one who grows the most in the movie as her perspective is more and more fleshed out, and that seems to be one of the themes that the movie tries to get
Of
to.
course.
um but yeah, you just end up really disliking pretty much everybody except for her, right?
Yeah. 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 But that was what surprised me the most about the film was the organization of the script, as you said. You know, a movie like this, medieval setting, climaxing in a epic duel, 1v1. This could have just been mainly that, but it's not actually that because it's thematically interested in so many, I think richer things. And starting with Damon, starting with Garu, and seeing how his perspective of himself is a lot different from reality, right? Like he starts off as like, a noble man, really indebted to the church, to the crown, sees himself as good, and he sees himself as a just person, and a loving husband as well, right? And watching that progress as we get the other perspectives coming in, starting with Legree, he's like, oh wait, no, this guy's actually kind of prickly. He's kind
Mhm.
of vain and pedantic about titles and things like that. And people just don't seem to like him at court. He's just kind of a dick,
Mhm.
not that cool. And then again, third time, when you see Comer's perspective, oh wait, no, this guy actually is also really cold to his wife, and not actually like a good man in that
Right.
regard either. I just love the way they break Damon down, and credit to Damon for really uglying himself up and being a really
Oh yeah.
unlikable character. Obviously it starts off with like that scar, which just makes him,
Mhm.
not as handsome, but the
And that
way they,
stupid hair.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, oh, totally. And the way they break him down, I loved it,
Mhm.
but act, and like I love the way they starts it off with Act Two, and it's like, you get a Legree's perspective, driver's perspective. It's like, oh, I see what this movie's doing now. Wow, interesting.
Mhm.
And this obviously leads itself to, you know, great moments of levity from Ben Affleck's Pierre, the local lord,
Yeah.
who just complete camp performance. It's tremendous, so
Affleck
funny,
destroys this movie, dude. Just
so
absolutely.
so crazy.
He chews on every single scene as many times as possible.
Yeah, amazing,
Right.
right? And then you got something that might be a little more controversial, right? Is because you see the assault happen from
Mhm.
Legree's perspective. She don't protest too much. To him, it was supposed to happen. Blah blah blah.
She
All his
had
all
to. She's a lady. She had to scoff my advances.
right. And then you see it again. You get a lot of other good things with the truth performance, the Homer, or sorry, not performance, POV. A lot of other things with that. But then you get that rape scene a second time, and you
Mhm.
see it in an even more heinous fashion, and the real fashion, which obviously makes sense given that it's
Mhm.
sexual assault. I think for some people, seeing a sexual assault twice on screen, probably not something they're super jazzed to do. But I do think the movie, kind of hits home thematically what it's going for, especially when you get to the trial stuff,
Mhm.
and how at every turn the church and the prosecution and yada yada, everyone's trying to poke holes in her story. But even like deeper than that, right? It's like uh Karu, Damon, he's only concerned about the assault in terms of how it affects him, and how Legree is like stabbing him in the back once again by raping my wife. He's like never actually concerned with the well-being of his wife, and you don't actually get that like final like nail in his like character until you're
Can
like
this
2 hours
man
into the
only do
movie.
evil to me? Can this
Right.
man only do evil to me? And what was it that the priest said, that rape is not actually a woman's concern? It's a man's property, like
Right. Yeah.
concern. Just really awful and hideous stuff.
Yeah. And then after all that, all these revelations and new piece of information learned about our characters, then you actually get the duel, and the duel is still really epic, and
Mhm.
Damon's lording over Driver like he's fucking Oberyn from Game of Thrones, yelling "confess,"
Mm.
great vibes.
I
So
mean, and that final like dagger through the head, dude. Like
visceral.
Jesus Christ. But I think like you make a really good point about the like growth of the characters in this, because really I think the most meaningful interaction or conversation that happens in the whole movie is between uh Haru's mom and Marguerite, when she says
Yes.
like, "Who are you to like do this?" And like, potentially my son's gonna die now. And she's like, "Well, this happened to me. This was awful." And she's like, "Well, it happened to me too." And I just
Right.
went on with it because that's just what people do during this time, pretty much. And then Marguerite later on, before they have to go to the duel, is saying, "I would have made the same choice if I had had this child um, before
Right.
I brought all these allegations on her before I knew what was happening. And it's just really like obviously heartbreaking, but like I think just hammers home the like absurdity of this time and just the misogynistic atmosphere that just hovered over everything. It's just
Hmm.
awful. But I think it really drives home that like this was a very brave thing, and like these men are the ones who are lauded and known in the story, but really the only one that did anything truly brave was Marguerite.
Right. And I've seen that kind of you said as a criticism as well. Is at the end, the movie ends with an epic conflict between the two men, and at
Mhm,
the end, Garou's still raising his fist, all hyped that he fucking killed Legree. You know,
mhm. Meanwhile, he's like
and
bleeding out of his dick, basically, but
oh god, yeah,
whatever.
and yeah, man, like I mean,
But
so it might be a little on the nose to some, but like when they go after her at the trial, oh, you said Legree was handsome, as if
mhm,
that has anything to do with you being raped, you know? But like
yep,
that's the line of thinking that you still often will see today when it
mhm,
comes to that. It's like, oh, she was asking for her. What was she wearing? You know, we've heard this before, unfortunately.
yep,
And that's why I really love the movie because it has everything from a period level done at a really high level, obviously in terms of production values, the
yeah,
action, even the early action when you're seeing Damon in Scotland or his campaign, local campaign with Driver. You know, the sword and sandals fighting stuff is fun, but thematically, it just goes in a place I didn't expect. You know, in terms of like late period Ridley Scott, you know, he hasn't, I don't think, made a movie this involved in quite some time, and he still made a lot of great movies in later in life. Look no further than The Martian with Damon, but
mhm,
I was quite impressed, and
yeah.
also I just didn't really see it coming.
Yeah, just to circle back to your points about where the movie ends, it does the actual final scene is Marguerite with her child in a field, and
Right,
just them, no one else, which I think is great. And then you get the title cards that Carew is goes on the Crusades and dies, and
right.
which is just really really funny, like
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
poetic ending.
My theater kind of laughed. I saw it earlier screening, so it was fuller than I'm sure most people's theaters, and then everyone kind of chuckled. It's like, yeah, fucking, of course he died in the
Yeah,
Crusades.
of course. And then Marguerite goes on to run her estate by herself for 30 years and never remarry. So shout out to her.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just want to say like Jodie Comer, um, really having a hell of a year on the big screen. I haven't seen Free Guy, but like pretty much everything I saw
It's
about
good
it
in
is
it.
that she just slayed it, and then to get it the star turn that she does in this, and I was really worried because, like you said, from Korea's perspective, it's all about him and not very much about her, other than that this thing happens and it drives him forward to do stuff,
Right.
and then she comes out more and more as each story gets told, and it's just really wonderful to see her break out in the end. I thought she was fantastic. So
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned her scenes with Karu's mom, the mom played by Harriet Walter. Of course, Comer and Walter have a lot of chemistry from Killing Eve,
mhm,
and Comer seems to have left a good impression on Ridley Scott because she was recently cast in the movie he's about to make next, Kit Bag, which is a movie about Napoleon Bonaparte starring Joaquin Phoenix, making that
mm,
next year. But of course, we're getting another Ridley Scott movie in between these two because House of Gucci is coming out in a month. Because
hell
Ridley Scott,
yeah.
despite being 83 years old, is just a goddamn legend,
Yep.
and you love to see it. But yeah, to your point, Jodie Comer, I think the name is getting out there. People know now, and obviously it was abundantly clear from Killing Eve season one that she was a tremendous talent, but she's also getting the parts, and that's awesome.
Yep. Also want to shout out Alex Lothar,
Yes,
who plays, I think, a great King Charles, a king who is known for his like mental illness and psychotic episodes. So I just thought he stood out every time that they showed him on screen. He
really
was
fun.
great.
And once
Um,
again, shout out Affleck, man. Really, honestly, awesome.
Affleck in that wig and the blonde wig and that goatee and just being a total fuck boy is like just great stuff.